You are listening to the Marketing 32 Show with your host, Brett Allen.
Hi, Brett Allen here. Welcome to the Marketing 32 Show, where I connect with leading dentists, dental influencers, and industry experts to uncover the latest strategies and insights and innovations that help dental practices grow and thrive. This episode, like all the other episodes, is brought to you by our team here at Marketing 32. We are the only dental marketing agency that I know of that offers a performance guarantee. So if you're not growing with your current marketing company, come over to us. We'll help you grow. And if we don't, you don't pay. To learn more about us, marketing32.com is where you go. Schedule a call with us and we'll see if it'll be a great fit. Quick shout out to Spencer Greer, who I recently interviewed. Go check out his episode on how he grew his two practices, has now worked with DSOs, and how he's helping individual practice owners take their practices to the next level by not leveraging marketing, but all the internal things that you do to grow. So on that note, we've got an awesome person. Her reputation precedes herself in the dental industry. She's a consultant, speaker, dental systems guru, and Dental Drill Bits podcast host, Sandy Pardue. She's been in the industry for over 25 years. Sandy brings a ton of real-world experience to dental practices, and she is all about the value in helping teams. So I'm excited to have you on the show today, Sandy.
Hi, Brett, and hello, listeners. I'm excited too. I love to talk. That's one thing about it. All this morning, I just got through recording a training video, and I had a group that I was training from all over the United States. So I've been talking all day, and I'm happy to do it.
Well, great. I know you're going to provide a lot of value today. I'm excited to have you on the show. Thank you again. So let's talk a little bit about Sandy and how she got into the dental world and what are you doing now? So tell us your background for those of you who may not know you, and then what it is you're doing with Classic Practice Resources.
Okay. Well, I was going to be a stay-at-home mom. I went to LSU, thought maybe I'd be a teacher. I loved my speech class. But I got married very young and thought, yeah, you know what? We'll buy our first house and then I'll just be a stay-at-home mom. And you know what? A lot of people in the dental field know my daughter, Dana. She worked at Classic Practice for 16 years and she got her MBA and she went off away from mom, so but she still is on my podcast with me. She co-hosts with the podcast Dental Drill Bits. But so I stayed home with her until she started kindergarten. And I was like, man, I got to do something. And my best friends were like Lisa and Bob on As the World Turns. I was like, and Nikki on The Young and the Restless. It's like, oh, man. I mean, I'd get up and have dinner cooked and everything done by 9 a.m. That wasn't the life for me. So I had heard about this dentist that was actually a friend of ours. And I heard it from a friend of ours that he was doing $1.2 million. And this is in the 80s. Okay.
Wow.
In the 80s.
That's big.
With solo practice, no marketing, and there was no insurance, right? It was like all fee for service. And he was doing 90 units of Crown and Bridge a month. And he had 18 team members. And I'm like, now I would like to manage an office like that. That would be fun. So this is in the 80s. In the South, the economy was not that good, and there were about 70 or 80 applicants, is what I was told by that current office manager. Mm-hmm. And I got hired. So he hired me, but he wanted me to learn all the positions in the office. Well, I was like, okay. So I did a little bit of everything. But at the same time, now remember, this is before the internet. So people were coming from literally around the world to tour that practice. They were coming from Australia, New Zealand, Canada, England. A lady came from Japan twice just to tour that practice because it was so organized. People heard about it. And so these people would come in and I was the one that would show them around and explain how we did things. And then they were like, well, gosh, can Sandy come to our office? And we want to set up our office just like this. And so that's how I got into consulting. So by the late 80s, early 90s, I was started to giving these full day, actually day and a half seminars on scheduling, systems, accounts receivable, setting up ways to track statistics, which was unheard of back then, how to write
all the
procedure
metrics.
manuals and checklist. I mean, we had all of that. So we were doing all that before it was like the cool thing to do. I mean, we had checklists for new employees, checklists when people left. We had a whole library of every job and what worked and what didn't work and verbal skills. So that's how I got started. I did not want to leave that practice. I will say some listeners may have heard that story before. I literally cried every day for a year because the doctor's wife is the one that saw my potential. She's the one that pushed me. And I was like, but I don't, I love my job. And
Yeah.
I did. I loved my job. And she would say, let's go to New Orleans. She'd pick me up on a work day and go, trying to court me into leaving to be this consultant. So finally I said, okay. And that's what happened. And then all of a sudden, he had 6 patents in the dental field. So he invented a crown remover. And he's like, okay, we're going to switch gears. You're going to be going to all these dental shows and showing this crown remover. So I'd still do a little bit of consulting and I'd go to these dental shows, about 12 a year. And that's how I really got in with a lot of people that asked me to write for them and speak at the meetings. And it just grew from there. So now you got my story. The rest is history. Oh, and
Yeah.
let's not forget Dental Town. In 2002, I signed up on Dental Town, and I literally worked with hundreds of those doctors, even
Yeah.
Howard Brand. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great community. Yeah, so you figured out some things early on in terms of tracking metrics, all the internal things that you could then leverage into helping and making an even bigger impact than just one
That's
practice.
right. And then
Yeah.
and systems. It's like the whole idea of systems, like recipes. I mean, we early on even had a policy on how to write a policy, a policy on how to write a checklist. I mean, everything that I've ever taught, it's all in writing with about around 2,500 documents of just
Wow.
information, successful
I bet-
actions.
And that may be probably the biggest thing is that most practices probably have a deficit or an inefficiency around processes and how we
Oh,
document
yes.
everything
Oh,
and
my
how we
goodness.
communicate that to our team, how we're
Oh, my
hiring
goodness.
people. So we're bringing in the
Well,
right people
no,
for the right position and all of that. So I
exactly. Well,
guess
what
this is great.
happens?
Yeah, this is a great segue into what you're doing with Classic Practice Resources. Let's talk about that. So when you come into a practice, what are the the biggest things that you find are like the holes in the bucket, so to speak?
Well,
And
keep in mind,
what's the big value there?
that most practices think they're organized and then they hire someone new. And what they do is every time they hire someone new, instead of that person coming into structure that's been created and taught how the successful actions of how that practice runs, they bring everything they did at the office down the street, whether it was good or bad. And now that's the new system. So people get a little, they twist up this whole concept. If I have a recipe for something delicious, maybe, I make a good carrot cake, homemade carrot cake, or Italian cream cheese, or I make a good gumbo, right? So I've got a recipe for it and it's in writing and it's followed consistently. So the consistency gives me predictable results of my gumbo or my carrot cake or whatever it is.
Right.
So let's take that and look at it from the business perspective. Okay, in a dental office, there is a best action, a best way to do, or best practices for own skills, new patients, collections, past due collections, financial arrangements, scheduling, confirmations, preventing broken appointments. There's about 42 systems in a practice. So each one of these systems, let's think of it like a recipe. So you've got to find the best way to do it. It can't just be we do it. What's the best way for the best results? That's your recipe. So the only way to have the predictable results is to have consistent actions by the team. It's that easy. So, but that's not how dental offices usually run. So usually you've got team members that are doing it their way. You've got untrained team members. You've got a doctor that's working very hard and often very stressed. Okay. Look on Facebook,
Well,
look in
yeah.
these
Yeah.
groups.
hmm
And you see it that the dentists are so stressed. They
Well,
want to get out of dentistry.
you go to dental school to become a clinician, and there's all these other things of being a business owner and a team leader and all of that to create a patient experience that you just don't get in dental school.
No, that's
Yeah.
exactly right. You're exactly right. So the solution is structure and thinking of it as a business. So most dentists, when they get out of school, they're thinking, oh, what kind of chair am I going to put in my operatories? And what kind of, when they should be thinking, how am I going to structure my business? And that's how most businesses run. The
Mm.
administrative part of the practice in dentistry is the
That's the
stepchild.
the
It's the
oh,
stepchild.
yeah,
It gets the
and that's the
least
most
amount of
important
attention.
piece. It it flows over into everything else in the practice.
It's the heart of the practice. It determines the success or the lack of it is those
Mm.
administrative systems. And of course, the technical area delivers the dentistry.
Okay, so let's talk about that. Let's dig into the systems that you help to implement. A doctor who doesn't have this awareness or even know where to start, you've got all this background. You've worked with so many different practices. You've seen different methods and how it's done, and you've probably figured out the best way, I would assume. And
Oh,
so,
absolutely.
yeah, from what I hear, you're awesome. So tell us about that. Where do you start?
Okay, so listeners, you might be feeling stressed or you might be thinking, well, we have good days and then we have days that aren't so good. There's a lot of broken appointments, there's holes in the schedule. I've got $1 million in unscheduled treatment and all the, it's just everything's falling apart. You need to train your team. Well, first off, you want to take a team inventory is what I like to call it. Like do you have the people in the positions that can bring you the bone? It's like, in other words, can they do their job, right? It's like because you have to have the right people. And I'm going to use this as an example. I have a client right now that I've worked with off and on for a long time. He's got a beautiful practice, like a solo practice doing almost $3 million. It's very impressive on 4 days a week. Fee for
Wow.
service, I want to add.
Oh, man.
Oh yeah, it's a beautiful practice. And so he has a little situation where he knows that there's somebody that's just not the right person on the team and a little afraid to go and search. I want you to know we put an ad in last week and we already have 3 very hot candidates. I mean, like Monday we had them. So Monday I spoke to them Monday night and we just put the ad in Friday. And I think he's going to hire 2 of these people. He might end up hiring 3 of them. I don't know. He's going to hire 2 because we're going to promote one person to office manager
Oh,
that is
interesting.
an existing person. So you have to try to get the right team, right? So you have to decide it's going to happen. If you're telling yourself, I probably can't find anybody, it's hard to find good
Mm,
people. Guess what? You kind of get what you think in life. So change that
mm,
mindset and start working on the business part of your practice. Learn all you can. Get your team trained. I do these front desk pro seminars, which I'm going to say I did one last week in Ohio, one the week before in Houston. I'm going to be in Burbank, California in March of 2025, and then again in Philadelphia in May. Let me tell you, and that is where you start. How do I get organized? Systems.
mm.
How do you get systems? It comes with what needs to be done in each position. A lot of people just have too many cooks in the kitchen in their practice where everybody's doing a little bit of everything and there's very little accountability. So you need to this is how we're going to do this. This is who is in charge. Let's measure their actions. So that's what a lot of practices fail to do. So if you're the leader and you want to have somebody in charge of the schedule, they need to know they're in charge of the schedule. I'll go to these seminars where I'm speaking to hundreds of people and it could be half of them are front office. And I asked,
Mm,
who in here knows, like they're the scheduling queen, they're in charge of the schedule, and nobody raises their hand. It's like nobody knows in the practices that they are responsible for the schedule. And you know what? Nothing in the practice is more important than the schedule. If the schedule's not filled, nothing else matters. So you start with appointing a scheduler. Okay.
mm,
And then that person, you need statistics that align with their actions, what they can
mhm,
control.
mhm,
I'll give you an example of how not to do it. Sometimes people put the hygienist, their statistic is office collections. That makes no sense. They can't control
mm,
it. So
right.
your positions are, okay, I'm the scheduler. I'm responsible for the office production. I know the goals per provider. If you don't have goals, set them today. Like you need goals, production goals for every provider. The scheduler needs to know what they are. That's how they build the day. Then you need that person monitoring or tracking their calls out, how many appointments they made from their calls out, the number of broken appointments, the percentage of time filled. These are very important statistics that they can control. If they're going up, they're doing a good job. Same with the treatment coordinator. Treatment plans presented and accepted. Same with the person that's responsible for the income, the financial coordinator. What statistics do you have that person in charge of? That should be office collections. The goal is 98%. They should be monitoring that. What's the AR balance, the 30, 60, 90 days? Who's in
Mm,
charge of insurance? You know what, Brett? There's 4 departments at the front desk. A lot of people don't realize that. There's 4 departments. You've got the financial, insurance, scheduling, and the practice concierge or receptionist person. If you've got less than 18 patients being seen a day, you just need one person to do those 4 jobs.
okay.
If you have 18 to 32 patients a day being seen, you need 2 people. After 32 patients a day, you need a third person. You don't determine how many people you need at the front by production. People, that's like a myth in dentistry. It's like that makes no sense. Now
Yeah.
I've got people doing $3 million a year, and
Yeah.
they only need 2 people up front. So
There's different volumes and flows in each kind of
yes,
practice. If you're an
I've taken
implant
a
center, it's
stopwatch to
totally
it.
different. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah, I've taken a stopwatch to it. Like, how long does it take to check out a patient? And then if you've got a practice that's seeing 16 patients a day and 2 people can't get the job done, that's when you need to say, what are they doing? So I just examined a practice that recently, like I like something was off. They have 2 people that work the front, 16 patients a day, and they are like, we can't get the work done. Okay, well, let's look at your checklist. Let's look at your systems. Well, they can't get the work done. Well, come to find out, I learned that one of the long-term employees is like going out and visiting with everybody for 20 and 30 minutes, all the patients in the reception room. Now, you can't do that.
Yeah. That's not
Yeah,
scalable.
so you
Yeah.
can't do that. So, yeah, you need to be friendly, but you need to learn how to greet people and make them feel acknowledged, and then go back to your work.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
How much of what you do is front desk? I know that's a huge part and often a bottleneck we see on the marketing side is how they're answering the phones, are they
Sure.
scheduling, all of that.
Sure.
But how much of I mean, there's so many processes in the practice.
Well,
It seems like a lot of it is
we work with
okay.
assistants. We don't train them on procedures, but verbal skills, communication, appointment wrap ups, handoffs, same with hygienists. We do have, as part of our consulting program, we have hygiene consulting um, to help implement perio programs, improve their verbal skills, watch their statistics. We help the entire practice with office management training, team meetings, making them more productive.
Do
Definitely
you also
treatment
get
management.
into do you also get into the whole case acceptance process of like the sales
Absolutely.
process, like how we're talking to the patient, how the doctor transitions from
Absolutely.
treatment coordinator or hygienist?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We spend a lot of time on that. A lot of my seminars are on that. And I told you earlier that I had recorded a training today with practices around the country. And
Mhm.
that was the topic, handling patient objections to scheduling.
Mm.
And that, yeah. So it's very good. Yeah. And people say,
That's,
well, how did you get this information? Well, for that, we were recording phone calls before it was cool to record phone calls.
oh,
Back,
wow.
I'm talking like a long time ago, we had for 15 years recorded every call going in and out of the office. And we used those old fashioned cassette tapes.
Oh,
And
wow. Okay.
we literally had boxes of them, and we hired some LSU students to listen to those and tell us what the patient objections were. And so we didn't
Uh,
know if there'd be like 5 objections or 25 objections, but there were 7 objections. And so,
oh,
and
interesting.
then we focus on like the verbal skills and learning them. See, a lot of people will say, oh, I'm too busy to come. That's an objection, but it's
Right.
not the real one. Their real one could be fear, right?
Absolutely.
Or
Yep.
unaware need, or they don't um, really understand like what needs to happen, or
Hmm.
think they can't afford it. They say I can't afford it, and that kills the sale. But I'm
Yeah.
not. I want to be real clear. I'm not about the heavy sales and pushing treatment. I'm
Right.
more about education and the team
Hmm.
having confidence to talk to the patients and say things like, let's get you in before it gets worse. Let's get you in
Yep.
before it
Yep.
costs more. And so I don't believe in hard sales with
Hmm.
patients because I think they see right through it. But I think when you
Right.
have a team that can communicate and they care, they really care about helping the patients, that's what we
Hmm.
help build those teams.
That's
Yeah,
awesome. Yeah. Conviction is a huge part of selling. And if patients sniff through false conviction, where it's just like, I'm going through a process and I'm just trying to
that's right.
I'm getting the yes out of you. Right.
That's
Whereas
right.
I think where it's genuine conviction, like, hey, here's the problem and, here's the solution and here's some options for you to choose from. Yeah.
Right. And let
A
me show
lot,
you, let me show you, show and
a
tell.
lot, a lot goes into that. And I'm so glad that you helped focus on that. We have, and I know we've been working on this a little bit recently, as our call tracking software that helps show a dashboard. It shows a dashboard on all these different areas you were talking about at the front desk of how they can do better. But anyway, um, awesome. So let's kind of. I know we've covered a lot today. What's one big domino that, like, if we could just help a practice push this over, it would have a ripple effect across so many different areas in the practice that would really give them the value today for listening. Like, what's something they can do today, or something they can do with you if they enlist your help? What's that big thing?
Well, the first thing that they need to do is get organized. I mean, that's just start thinking about working on the business aspect of the practice. That's the most important thing. And that's not something that you can walk up to the front and just go, "Oh yeah, so everybody, let's get busy and be organized." No, you've got to look at each system in your practice. Look at what's causing you stress. If you've got like open time because it was never filled or because of broken appointments, that's a system. Fix that system. Don't try to focus on too many things at one time, but look for missed opportunities with your team. Get your team together. This is something that the listeners could do this week. They just let's have a meeting. Let's talk about each person. How's your department doing? Don't let them get off track, but bring like what's needed, what the one needed for each department, and
Mhm.
what are the missed opportunities to discuss it as a group. That is so powerful to sit there
Mm,
as a group and say, how can we get better? How can we work better as a team? It's very, very powerful. Come up with a practice vision, and this is all part of it. But like, I'll guarantee you, sometimes when you ask team members, like, what are some missed opportunities? You might have to help them a little bit, like just looking at the open time and the value of that time that was the missed opportunity because you can't get that time back, right? You can't buy it, can't buy any more time, right? You
mhm,
can't borrow it. It's like you get one chance every day to make every day the best it can be. Those are missed opportunities. So you might
mm.
need to help your team focus on that. What are our missed opportunities? Patients
Yeah.
walking out without the next appointment. Have these discussions with your team. And then if they're ready to make changes and they want to get more organized, get training for them, whether it's my seminars or a local CE or a dental meeting. make sure your team gets trained. We run into so many offices that have people that have been there 15 or 20 years and they're stuck. They don't even know what they're missing because they never got out of their own four walls, which, by the way, I can
That's a
leave the
big one.
listeners with this. Your success or the lack of it depends 100% on what goes on within your own four walls, not the clouds over your building or the weather or the person next door. I see people, oh, I'm going to get next to that practice because they do 3 million. So if I get next to them, or here's a
Oh,
quick
yeah.
example, you see it on Facebook, people come on and say, oh, I'm having tons of broken appointments this week. Or is anybody else? A what? That's like saying
Right.
I need to unload my dishwasher. Does anybody else need to unload their dishwasher? Broken
Yeah.
appointments in California have nothing to do with broken appointments in New York or North Carolina or anywhere.
Oh, man.
What's
Yeah.
going on in your own four walls?
That's so valuable. Yeah. Look within, mindset shifts, get organized, and take ownership with your team. Get the collaboration. That's so awesome. Everything you've said today, so valuable, Sandy. Everybody, you gotta reach out to Sandy. So best place, classicpractice.com. That's your website.
Classicpractice.com is the website, yes. And my email is Sandy, Sandy, at classicpractice.com. And I have a podcast called Dental Drill Bits and a Facebook group called Dental Drill Bits.
Let's do this. Go there. There's lots of great resources. Get connected with Sandy. Get the help you need today. We don't know what we don't know. So reach out and get help and have some breakthroughs so that you can get to that next level with your practice. Thank you again today, Sandy. And excited to see you here soon at a new event coming up next month. But thank you again.
Yeah. Thank you, Brett. I enjoyed it.
All right, everybody. Until next time, we'll see you on the Marketing 32 show. Have a great day.